Good evening, everyone. Today is November 13th. It is 5:11. This is a meeting of the Planning Advisory Board. We'll call the meeting to order. First thing is roll call. Melanie Hartwig Davis.
Present.
Lawrence Blevins. Edward Evans.
Present.
Dan Mason.
Present.
Elizabeth Rothberg.
Present.
Dawn Stolfus. Myself, Gus Kurtz. With 5 members present, we have a quorum. I'd like approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Second. Well,
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? The agenda is approved. Next, we will have the draft 1 region plan for comprehensive rezoning, and our summary of public testimony will be presented by Mark Wilbon.
Good. Thank you.
Mark, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, like Chairman Kurtz just mentioned, we're here this evening to review the public testimony during the PAB draft plan while that was out from September 18th, or available for public comment from September 18th till October 16th. And then after October 16th is when planning and zoning staff reviewed those comments and have now provided a summary, which is available on the Region 1 website. And we'll go over some of the comments here in the summary this evening. So we'll start with just reviewing any of the comments that were specific to the plan itself. So the text portion document where we lay out, where we identify what the existing conditions are, what the issues are, and strategies to address those issues. And then we'll roll into discussing the public comments that we received on the draft zoning map, which is the second component to the region planning process. Then we will, or I'll say during the public comment period, we also did receive new zoning applications. We'll touch on those just a little bit here at the end of tonight. But again, there will be a public comment period for that, and I'll provide some additional details of how to provide comment and when that next meeting is. And then talk about next steps. So again, just to sort of recap where we've been and where we're headed. Like I said, September 18th, staff gave a briefing on the Region 1 plan, and the public comment period was open. We did have a in-person and virtual public hearing where, again, as if individuals didn't want to provide written testimony, they had this opportunity to provide oral testimony. The written public comment period did continue through that timeframe and ended on October 16th. Here we are on November 13th, where the Planning Advisory Board will hear the summary, deliberate, and make recommendations on the Region 1 plan, as well as the draft zoning map. Then after tonight's meeting is when the public comment period would open on just new applications that were received during the Planning Advisory Board public comment period. We'll reconvene here on December 4th, where there will be a public hearing on just those new zoning requests. And the Planning Advisory Board will deliberate and make recommendations again on just those new applications. And then we do plan on introducing the plan and the draft zoning map in early 2025 for council review and adoption. I really covered a lot of this material during the briefing, which was recorded, or which on September 18th, and that meeting was recorded. And I do invite members of the public to review that so that we can just get into a lot of the subject matter here this evening. But just want to highlight that OPZ staff has been out into the community. We've tabled at events, we've held online public questionnaires, we've shopped out draft elements of the plan for public review. We put out the draft zoning map a couple times again for review, and so that we could continually get public comment on these items. Interestingly enough, it is what I've noticed is during each public review period, sometimes we actually get a different community that hears something new and comes out to these public hearings or provides written testimony. So I'll touch on where we may have heard, where it may have been quiet during one of the preliminary draft reviews, and during the PAB review where we've actually gotten a lot of comments that we didn't hear before during public comment periods. So just to sort of touch on, this is just a rough estimate here of the types of public comment that we had received. Most people, or I'll back up to, is when we launched this PAB draft, we did send a letter to all property owners. And so oftentimes when you get a letter, you may not understand what is actually happening. We speak in plannerese. So we often get phone calls from, or emails from individuals saying, hey, what does this actually mean for me? And so we answered a lot of those questions. And then individuals, we also then directed individuals to our online portal where they could leave formal comments if they so chose. And so again, just a breakdown of how, and sort of those buckets where those comments came in, whether they were SAC being Stakeholder Advisory Committee initiated zoning changes, where they were owner applications, consistency changes, just making sure that the draft zoning is consistent with the planned land use map as an adopted Plan 2040 3.5 years ago, or whether the comments were reflective of any of the Office of Planning and Zoning initiated changes. So we'll start with, again, just a very brief summary of the plan. As you can imagine, most of the comments that we did receive were on zoning and not necessarily the plan itself. Going over, like I said, where it identifies existing conditions, issues, strategies on how to address those issues. So again, is kind of putting them in buckets here is for the natural, because we break out the region plan essentially into 4 main topics: the natural environment, the built environment, healthy economy, and healthy communities. In the natural environment, the few comments that we did receive were just very general comments that said, we just need to protect our environmental resources, specifically forests, streams. What you may end up seeing here is, as I'm talking about this, when we get to the zoning, is where you'll hear these same themes, because zoning is actually then part of that implementation process. So while it may be general here, you'll hear it in zoning where we can actually make certain recommendations based on some of these comments. Then in the built environment, again, we hear a lot. I'm sure you've heard this last week with Region 9, you'll hear it next week with Region 3, is concerns about overdevelopment. There isn't enough capacity on our roads, or the roads are failing. We also heard from a contingent in the Ferndale area about road right-of-ways and how it may not be possible to, in our strategy section, put in for a capital project for sidewalks or bike lanes or something like that. So there were some concerns about that. Then the last one here is wording in the mixed use section of the built environment. So there is a section of built environment chapter where we talk about where the planned land use is recommended to be mixed use, but we may not be recommending a mixed use zoning district. So this section provides guidance for future decision makers on what type of mixed use zoning district would be most appropriate. Or maybe there is another step involved, like doing a sector plan before you rezone. So there were a couple of sections, again, we'll touch on that. I have specific slides on those later, but we did receive comments on how to tweak certain sections to better reflect what the community's vision is for some of those areas. So that's going to be a sort of a meaty section that we'll do some revising on, or we recommend to revise. So again, those were the summary. I know it's not a lot of comments, but most folks did focus on the zoning. So I'll pause there and ask if there are any comments on the plan itself. And planned land use and development policy areas are in the plan, but I think we can also tackle those because they go hand in hand with zoning. And we can talk about that in the next section. So
good.
Okay. Chairman, ready to move on?
Move forward.
Okay. Okay. getting into comprehensive zoning, when I say comprehensive zoning, that is the main focus, but there are these additional layers like planned land use I mentioned and development policy areas that, also go hand in hand or are related. So the first community, I'm going to go in alphabetical order like they would be in your chart. So starting with the Brooklyn Park community, we didn't receive any new zoning applications, and we received a lot of comments on these three areas: Fairfax Avenue, the Belgrove site, and 6025 Ritchie Highway. So this is, while it doesn't have an address, it's on the western portion of the county. It abuts the city of Baltimore and an industrial area there on the city of Baltimore side. And so, again, we have a variety of adopted zoning districts. The owner is requesting sort of this transition from W1 from the west to the east to W3. So a transition of W1, 2, and 3 from your least intense to your most intense industrial zoning districts. The Office of Planning and Zoning agreed with the applicant's request. However, the Stakeholder Advisory Committee did so, except for this little sort of notch up here, where they had recommended this be R5 to have sort of more cohesiveness with the existing neighborhood to the north. When we heard from, during public testimony, the applicant provided some additional information and has the position that if this were to be a different zoning district, they wouldn't necessarily be able to provide for their forest conservation on this site. Whereas if it is zoned the same as the one to the south, it would make that
We don't
more
have,
realistic.
we don't have a physical address that I can use to pull up on.
No, that's the thing.
Okay.
Let me see if I can get you even a house number.
If I can get anything in that area, that'd be great.
Yeah, okay. Great. So I provided myself sort of this cheat sheet note here at the top. You'll see it throughout some of these slides where just call out where the SAC did not agree with the Office of Planning and Zoning's recommendation, or there was significant feedback. Sometimes it's one or the other, sometimes it's both. Okay. So any questions? Yeah.
If you want to look at, if you're looking at Google Earth or something, that's it's near 403 Fairfax Avenue. If you type in 403 Fairfax, it should bring you right next to that. And as Mark noted, this is an area that transitions from residential to a large swath of industrial land to the south. It's a fair amount of topography as well, kind of separating the residential and industrial area.
Okay. Any questions on?
Oh, it's the industrial at all.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. I don't really see a lot of
I see
industrial
lots of trees and.
And-
So the site is currently
in home.
vacant, right? It may have some clearing, it's got some forest, sort of up towards the north here, there is some natural features, like a stream, so.
Adam Branch, like.
Yeah.
Okay, I think the industrial stuff is going
I
more,
think you're part of the wrong place.
well, is the industrial part going more towards Curtis Creek? Is that what I'm looking at? Or am I in the wrong area?
It's into the east, south, so towards the water.
Yeah, going towards Curtis Creek, right?
So,
There you go.
Yeah,
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 so it's this area.
okay, that's what I'm looking at. So I'm like, okay,
So there's a Cedar Hill planned unit development here, and the cemetery just to the north,
right, I see
and
that.
695
Sits over there.
here to the
Yeah,
south.
gotcha. So what's in, that in the middle is what we're looking at. I see it.
This,
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
open. Yeah.
Is that plan, what's in plan 2040 for that?
It's the planned land use is industrial.
Industrial.
Yeah. And so again, the difference between the stakeholder advisory committee's recommendation and office planning and zoning's is this area here to the north. And whether this should be W2 or R5.
Mark, how much is the, I mean, because this is the large, the 102 acres. So how much of the R5 are we looking at? How many acres? And how would that be affected by 7224? Is there enough to,
That's about 7 acres roughly.
so you're under the, well, no, they could,
And do they have water and sewer there?
For these properties here, I would need to pull that up.
I heard a yes.
That's confirmed.
Is that correct?
Talk more about the forest conservation aspect of that. Is that a genuine like requirement that they're gonna tell us about their position to keeping it?
Yeah, so again, it's their concern that the county would not permit the location of forest conservation or other open space required to support industrial development on the remainder of that property, on that 7-acre property. So again, to avoid that potential, the applicant feels that going back to this slide here to illustrate the connection with W2 and their intent, right, is that this area would be their forest con area when this is redeveloped.
So when they go in for their development process, they can use the W2 zoning as their forest conservation area because they're born under W zoning. If
That's
it's
what I
R5, they won't be able to use that in their calculation.
That's the understanding.
I think
And the record worth noting, Mark, the history of this site, that this was a sort of sand gravel site, correct?
Yeah, and it may have some contamination as well.
When they develop that industry, they'll have to use the calculations in the one part. But I think that 7 acres or 5, it will be developed as housing, it won't be dirt.
one of the last.
can you verify that? Can you announce that and verify that? If I agree with that, then it's 24, you need to have a study, that's fine.
So a question, and Joe's not here. but
Yeah.
Question we have, so in general, hypothetical, during the development process for the W zoning, they can count that 7-acre parcel if it's W zoning in their calculation for reforestation. If it's R5 zone, it won't count in their calculations. But the R5 zone would be developable as housing.
I think it's more of a matter of the same zoning district and being able to apply the forest con to that site. If that's what you were saying as well.
Yeah. Basically, yes. So if you leave it,
I can't answer the question,
okay,
because I don't know how they implement it downstairs.
right. So if you make it residential, then when they put houses, it's ordered.
Right.
Leave the W, it's going to be preserved, because they have to preserve it under their development. And don't leave it.
Right, don't have it.
Don't have to.
They have to.
You could do memorandum of agreement.
Sure. I got one.
What were you gonna say?
You said, they have to, so I said they have to preserve it, keep it.
They don't have to, but they could.
Okay,
They would be highly encouraged,
okay,
like a memorandum of agreement.
okay, sounds good.
That's what that sounds.
Can you go back to the main screen of
Yep.
what the,
What you want.
it's easy.
It does have a stream, wetlands.
Yeah, I move that zoning change number CZ R1 BLP 0003A, B, and C. B,
A, B, C, D.
I'm just reading
Oh.
from there.
This one has D on it.
Is there a D?
Is there a
If
date?
there's a D, there's a D too.
Are you looking at,
Our
the
printout.
Bellgrove?
A, B, C, D.
Just agree with, Officer Bennington. I
Mhm.
believe D is the only area of disagreement between the SAC and the.
Okay, that includes D.
And D. Recommended, we recommend that they adopt what OPZ and the owner have requested, which is W1, W2, and W3. And that the planned land use match accordingly. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion passed. Okay, Mark, next.
Next site is the Bellgrove site.
Can we? Question with this,
Yep.
for two things, but I really wanted Lawrence to be here because Lawrence had some opinions and he's
He
not
did.
here. Did he text and say,
That's not happening.
so let's table
Understood.
this one
Yep.
and come back at the end, okay? Because this is just for board's information. This is 169 acre parcel. And it's a lot of moving parts there. So, let's not tackle that. That's our first one. Let's get through a lot of the other stuff and we'll come back.
Did somebody reach out to him? Did someone reach out to him?
We did. Yes. Haven't heard.
Okay,
Okay, so the next property is 6025 Ritchie Highway, may also be known as Blackjack Trucking. The adopted zoning is sort of a mix between R15 in the rear and C3 along the front of Ritchie Highway. The owner has requested the entire property be zoned C4. The Office of Planning and Zoning agrees, and the Stakeholder Advisory Committee had recommended C3. So we had received public input from both property owner as well as the neighboring property owner here to the north, from the Cedar Hill, PUD. Obviously, one was the property owner, just again, supporting their own application, and the adjacent property owner contending that the property, should stay zoned as is. And that R15 buffer here to the rear, I'm going to flip back here to geocortex, so you can just see that split. Okay, so R15, and you've got just some C3 here.
The expansion plans there, is that what we?
Well, so we have provided you some, the applicant's application, which provides some zoning history as well as some case law then
Yeah.
on the case. And so it is the Office of Planning and Zoning's opinion that these uses, contractor's yard, auto repair, which are consistent with a C4 zoning district, have been in use since the 60s. And so a C4 zoning district would be appropriate for them. Again, the Stakeholder Advisory Committee, I'll note that while they did agree on C3, that was sort of their second vote. Their first vote, they were very much split down the middle between C3 and C4. So I think, if I may say that, I think they were still, while they decided on C3, there may have still been some indecision about that. So again, C3, you'll note here, to the north and south of this sort of oddly shaped property.
He
Mark,
said,
that's a bit,
he says it's 8 minutes out, just FYI.
oh, good, okay. Mark, that's a big jump from R15 to either C4 or C3, but they're non-conforming at the moment.
They do have the non-conforming certificate.
it's been non-conforming for many, many years. It's been
That's right.
C4 use for many, many years.
That's right.
This is at the corner of Ricky Highway and 695.
That's right. So as a trucking company, in close proximity to a major highway, I think that makes sense. One of the comments that sort of a theme of comments that we had received during the plan was that we are seeing a lot of truck traffic through residential neighborhoods. So,
All right. I'm ready to make a motion. If you go back to the screen, I can read that.
sure.
Okay, they need it, they need
Yeah,
it.
we're good. I just want to make sure.
You wanna make it?
Bring
No,
up
Please,
this-
feel free.
I move that CZ R1 BLP 0006 is be recommended for zoning C4 for the OPZ and the owner request, and that the planned land use match accordingly. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Motion carries.
Okay, so we'll move over to the Curtis Bay community. We received one new zoning application. Again, we'll touch on these new zoning applications at the end of this zoning discussion. And then two other areas that I'd like to bring up. One was US Army Depot. That one this is one of those properties that received a lot of comment after the preliminary draft review. And after the SAC had concluded their work. So for some reason, word had gotten out in that community at some specific time, and folks had come out and provided that comment. And then the other site here is the Brandon Shores Power Plant, where the Stakeholder Advisory Committee and the Office of Planning and Zoning had differing opinions. So starting with the Brandon Shores Power Plant, again, we did not receive any public comment on this area, but again, just recognizing that the SAC and OPZ came to different conclusions on the zoning for this property. It is currently zoned W3, like much of the area here to the north as well. So the Office Planning and Zoning, we're recognizing that existing use, and we anticipate that use to continue 2028 at least, based on certain agreements that we're aware of. So uncertain about how long the power plant may be in operation. The Stakeholder Advisory Committee recommended mixed use employment, recognizing that this could be an incentive for redevelopment on the site sooner than later, and recognizing the greater community's vision for more housing types and diversity of uses.
Okay, so this might be a good time for you to elaborate a little bit about the mixed use potential changes that are before the council now.
Okay.
You want to do your best.
He's like,
Yeah, well,
thanks.
so the thing is, right, the bill is currently before council. There have been some amendments. I think there may be additional amendments underway. I mean, Christine, do you want to try to summarize, or I can summarize?
Well,
the gist of it?
right now we have 4 mixed-use zoning districts that are very heavily based on use. They're called things like mixed-use residential, mixed-use commercial, mixed-use employment, mixed-use transit. The bill is going to rename the existing 4 districts, and they are going to become more more scale-based rather than use-based. So if you say, our community would be suitable for like smaller mixed use that maybe is only 3 stories in height. Because right now, our 4 districts, 3 of them allow heights up to like 120 feet. So that's parole. Not every place can take parole in their backyard. So there's a crosswalk table that identifies what each mixed use district will become. And a 5th district is being added, and that's the village district. So the village district is going to be the one that has the smallest scale, only up to 3 stories. Mixed use residential is going to migrate to becoming mixed use neighborhood. Mixed use commercial will become mixed use general. And then there's chunk in the bill that pretty much defines what that district would be intended for. So it's, it tells you the village mixed use district is intended for small scale, walkable, low intensity. And then it goes all the way up to, mixed use urban, which is compact, high intensity mixed use development that's more urban in scale, up to 14 stories, okay? So 5 districts are gonna ramp up. And then there's a use chart, which it looks like the use chart has been amended. They eliminated the entire original use chart and they put a different one in. But you can go through and see which uses would be permitted in each. Obviously, the village, which is now gonna be the most, the lowest scale, has the least amount of permitted uses, where, as you might expect, the middle and upper have more permitted conditional and special exception uses. And in the bulk regs, just to give you, an idea, for instance, bulk regulations, which, permit the density or how big the development can be.
Yeah.
Like the village is gonna allow 7 dwelling units per acre. The general district will allow 10 per acre. The neighborhood will allow 15 per acre. Suburban will allow 22 per acre. And urban is gonna allow 44.
Chris, can I stop you for a second? Yeah. If you don't mind, since we're looking at mixed E, which is mixed employment, can you focus on what?
Yeah, so mixed E would become MXDS or suburban center. And so suburban is gonna be 22 dwelling units per acre for any residential uses. The maximum building height is 144 feet. You know, the open area is gonna be 15%, although that is standard across all the districts.
Where do you see 50% in that chart?
15, one
Oh,
five.
15, I'm sorry, thank goodness,
Sorry.
okay, no, that's fine. Okay, so then also,
So I guess in question I have is that in theory, if we would assign 455 acres MXDE, which becomes MXDS, potentially it could be 455 times 22 in housing.
Yeah, they're gonna have to provide at least 2 different uses. That's one of the things the bill does call for. But yes, it is going to be an intense use.
Okay,
And also mentioned here too is, despite the two different recommendations for zoning, both Office Planning and Zoning and Stakeholder Advisory Committee recommended a mixed use plan land use. So what we'll talk about for some of the additional sites here later in the slide deck is going back to that mixed use description section in the plan itself and providing some more detail, like before this site gets rezoned, Office Planning and Zoning should do a study, a community study, to work with the community or others, get some additional input on whether a mixed use zoning district is appropriate for this site, recognizing that there is contamination on the site. And does residential make sense? Can it be cleaned up to a certain degree?
okay, so along those same lines, what happens if you keep it W3?
well, that's fine.
So, right, you could keep it W3, keep the mixed use plan land use, and provide some additional guidance within the plan of how to proceed with a potential mixed use zoning district. If,
We can provide guidance?
right, here, that's the recommendation that you all would provide is say, for example, adopt W3 or recommend W3 rather, recommend W3, recommend a mixed use plan land use. And in the plan, if you want, I could get the page number, say we would also recommend that before a mixed-use zoning district is applied to this property, that a study is done, and you can provide whatever you'd like to describe what that study should look like.
Okay,
You
Give
know,
us-
conceptual
give us-
plan.
give us 30 seconds.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
What do you think? I like that. You like
Keep it at W3, right?
W3 with the.
With the,
Study.
that's what I was,
Yeah.
as long as we can understand.
That gives them wiggle room, but not the potential. 800.
Well,
Well,
it's contaminated too, so, yeah.
Right, because what is prescribed in the bill is that crosswalk of what's currently MXD or CEP automatically going to this other zoning district. So you could, right, essentially kind of punt it to see how these other zoning districts pan out, or if there's an additional zoning zoning district that doesn't exactly crosswalk, that is more appropriate.
And I'll also make a comment, by the time this property gets, if it does get decommissioned from a power plant and cleaned up, there may be another comprehensive rezoning.
By that.
by that
That's-
time.
That's the idea. Yeah, and so the guidance in the plan helps inform then that next region plan, comprehensive plan, whatever it may be.
And so we recommend a study's gonna be done. Right,
You want to make the recommendation?
Give me one more minute.
Okay.
I motion CZR1 CSB 0300 be recommended for W3 zoning. And the planned use of mixed use be explored to have a study with involving the neighborhood
community. Mhm. And,
for appropriate use.
mhm.
Okay, motion's been made. Do we have a second?
I second that.
Second. You have that, Jesse? Michael?
Yes, I have, W3 zoning, mixed use plan land use with a recommendation for a study involving the neighborhood to determine the future use of the site.
Can we
Used
just-
in zoning.
Just technically, can we change word neighborhood to community? Thank you.
Okay,
Small,
all right, so motion's been made. We have a second?
I seconded already.
Second, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
Moving on then to the US Army Depot. Another large property, mostly vacant. It's got some use of here at the front of Ordnance Road. And same idea where the Office of Planning and Zoning is making a recommendation of maintaining the existing zoning of W2. And the Stakeholder Advisory Committee recommending a mixed-use zoning district employment. The Office of Planning and Zoning, we initially recommended mixed use, planned land use of mixed use for the site. But now hearing from the public that maybe mixed use won't be right for this site in the, won't be right for this site in the short term, that will revert it back to public use, which is actually the adopted planned land use.
Mark, question, is there a Superfund site on this property? A contamination Superfund site?
It's not a Superfund designation, but, you know, our understanding is that there is some residual contamination on site from its previous operations.
Yeah. So the Stakeholder Advisory Committee is recommending the planned land use be mixed use. But again, this is a situation where we didn't receive any comments from the community, from some of these W3 industrial uses until after their work was done. So again, this is a situation where the SAC and Office of Planning and Zoning have differing opinions, and we did receive a lot of public feedback during the Planning Advisory Board public comment period.
In the public feedback, if I remember correctly, it was 0 for yes and 70 or 90 people.
Overwhelming majority indicating that this site is not appropriate, would not be appropriate for residential in the future and mixed use as proposed.
What is neighboring right below there? That's a community on the map?
That-
Here to the
right
south.
there, yeah.
Yeah, Office Park. Yeah, so
Office
this is W1 here to the south.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yep.
No,
And so there's Bachman Park, the detention facility, heavy industry, this darker purple is the W3. And some of their concern was that if you do build residential on this site and you have people moving in and there's still, say, a garbage transfer facility or other heavy industry on this site, there will be complaints and conflict, right? So
and butting up against the detention, so. Potential,
essentially, right?
okay.
So there is always the concern of hearing later about coming to a nuisance.
Yeah.
Right? And we did recognize this, during our preliminary draft down in the Harmans area where there is a small mixed-use community. We initially recommended expanding that, but we heard from that group that said, we've already gotten a lot of complaints about our business. And we've had to sort of scale back a little bit. And so we agreed with those residents and said, okay, let's keep this as an industrial zoning district. So I see this as a similar situation.
Retain W.
Another
Leave it at that.
point to make is this property is owned by the Army.
Correct, yes. So you're dealing with,
So
right,
no matter what you do, you have to get past the Army and make an agreement with the Army
and remediation.
and remediate.
Right.
Okay, I make a motion. SB 0301. Be recommended for public use.
That's plan land use.
Oh, sorry,
Substitute zoning.
sorry. W2 zoning and the coordinating plan and the planned land use match accordingly.
Second.
Can I
Total,
ask a clarifying?
total plan land use is public.
That's
Not
what-
read-
important.
Okay, and the
Plan land use.
You got
would
that,
be
Jeff?
Public use. Okay,
Second.
Second.
second, Melanie? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
One, can I also add too, is we do have a section in the region plan that discusses how sort of what the scale or intensity of development should happen on this site, because it was based on that preliminary mixed use plan land use recommendation. So now that mixed use plan land use recommendation, you're recommending public use, would you also recommend then removing that section within the region plan? Do you follow?
One more
Yes.
thing.
Okay,
yes, we make a, yes, we don't need it anymore,
okay,
right? Right.
okay,
Right.
Because keeping it makes it confusing, right?
Mhm.
very good.
Yeah.
In some of these cases, you got all these
Okay,
red
Mark.
crossings
Yeah,
linking,
yeah.
right? So I just want to make sure that we're.
And then you have one, this one, both the OPZ and SAC agree, but I did want to just mention this one. You can pull it up, it's CZ R1 FND 0002.
Oh,
We'll go to Ferndale, the next neighborhood.
Oh, okay, well, I thought we were done with, we're not done with Curtis Bay?
We are done with Curtis
Yep.
Bay, so now if the,
Oh, we can make the
Oh, we
motion
need
in
the-
general.
Okay.
Unless there's any others you'd like to
No,
discuss.
Edwards,
No. Yep, what am I reading here?
the overall to make it,
I think it's labeled item 2.
I motion to recommend approval of the development policy area and development policy area overlay changes, plan land use changes, and comprehensive zoning for Curtis Bay as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during the meeting.
Did you get that same motion?
Okay.
Second.
Motion been second.
You did.
All in favor?
Aye. We have one to go. back.
Any nays? Motion carries.
Do we want to do that now or still want to push?
That
No,
wasn't
that's
the
the
first
first
thing.
one.
No, what I'm saying, do we want to revisit Brooklyn now or do you want to keep riding that to the
Michael
end?
says yes. Lead the clock.
Michael says go back?
I think it's appropriate to go back to Bellgrove.
Go back to
go
Bellgrove,
around Brooklyn
okay.
Park before
We're
you
gonna
close.
move back to Brooklyn Park then.
All right. Belgrove site. Another large sort of property that has the potential to be redeveloped here in the future. So right now we have quite a mishmash of adopted zoning districts from C4, R5, R10, OS. The owner had requested some W2 here for some warehousing, flex space, and then R5 to the north and R10 here to the east. And just to sort of help orient you, to the north here is the Pumphrey community. We had heard from them during the oral public hearing on October 2nd, and we did hear a couple pieces of testimony, written testimony during that same period.
Help me orient, where are we at in relation to 890 to 895?
So let me
Just so I
let me
can-
back down.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Gotcha.
right, this big crater here and
And
695.
Kind of at the bottom of
It's at the
hill.
bottom of the hill. Yep, I see it. I got you.
Okay, so the application, the owner had requested, like I said, W2, R5, R10. The Office of Planning and Zoning, we agree with that request. Understanding that that's what could potentially have the site redeveloped and bring the site up to modern stormwater management requirements. The Stakeholder Advisory Committee looked at this entire site and said, let's just recommend a mixed-use zoning district, say commercial, for that site. Which would not allow some of those industrial uses, which is a concern because if I may go back to looking at the road here, Baltimore and Napa, the frontage, you would see increased truck traffic here along Baltimore and Napa Boulevard. So that was a concern of a recommendation of an industrial zoning district. Sorry.
Can you also go, to the chart of the mixed use
Go back to that.
bill, please? So
Upper bill.
what does
So
mixed
C.
use commercial become? Mixed use general.
Mixed use general.
That's the second column here.
So
Okay,
that's
so let's go back to that mixed use general. So 10
10 houses
per acre.
And this is 169.
And then that's, that would be 1,600 homes.
well, no, it's mixed, right? So they give or take,
But you have to
right? So give or take, it's mixed.
Yeah, because it could be some type of active adult owner.
But you could still do homes now as R5 and R10.
But not,
Yeah, higher, right? I mean, I was gonna say, yeah.
We like this so that you would be.
Please, yeah, so bottom line is, like dredging, everything comes to a point where it has to stop. Same with the pit, at some point in time, it has to stop or it gets overflowed. Some of those neighbors he was referring to are in my community association, and they definitely let me know that they didn't agree. So third, I guess, major aspect is definitely the drainage. But after talking to Pumphrey, and they are part of a large community association that are with several, and I've been to their meetings. And I'm pretty sure if they wanted to roll with R5, like the one person said, they may, if they so choose. But I would like to give them options as well, so I would like mixed use. I would agree with the general mixed use for the SAC. Because there's a lot of things that need to be done, and remediation is definitely one of them. So I guess if you'd like to also note that the pile is on the top of the hill, and everything beyond that concrete border is downhill. So about, say about 1,000 feet, and it puts it at about a 20% slope from road to road. So it's going downhill heavy, so there isn't but so much use they can do. So that's why I don't see any reason that the mixed use like the SAC came through. That way it does give them options. I would prefer the R5, but the SAC and the people have spoken, and I will agree with them and say that would be my recommendation.
And this is the existing zoning, R5 for most of the property.
Currently
So,
R5.
so they were fine with that.
Go
So-
back, please, thank you.
Yeah, so this is existing zoning. So the one, I think one sort of wrinkle here is if there is a recommendation for either one of our current mixed use zoning districts, recognizing that it would be crosswalked over to, Christina, you said
General.
MXDG, right? Just want to sort of build in there in case the mixed use bill doesn't pass, right? Because this bill is still pending with the council.
For sure.
I want to make sure that there isn't a recommendation to a mixed use zoning district that doesn't exist, right? So I don't know what type of guidance we want to provide if it's,
Well, if it's commercial and it becomes general, then or it stays commercial.
could there be a recommendation for an existing mixed use zoning district commercial? And then provide in the guidance within the plan, you can even just copy and paste these same type of bulk regs. So that, again, if this fails, if the bill fails, then if there is a new bill, it could be, if it has new names or whatever, the decision makers would pick the zoning district that best applies based on the guidance in the plan. Right? Does
Okay,
that work?
So question,
what if we just kept it the same? Does that not leave
a question I have,
English?
Christina, in the mixed use zoning category, is there any industrial use allowed in that?
Well, Sterling pointed out, Sterling from the zoning division, that one that in the new districts that are proposed, really MXDS, which is the suburban center, references including some light industrial uses.
And that's
The
the
others probably reference it.
G is the second column from the left, right?
Okay, that's what I'm talking about.
So you see there, you were E.
That was formerly MXDE. Our MXD employment in the bill becomes MXD suburban, and that's the only one that references light industrial.
We should keep.
Like, keep it the same, I'll definitely roll up high, like,
Well, no, it's all.
It's already R5.
It's R5, R10, W2,
Which
W3,
is
and
what-
open space.
What the owner's asking
oh,
and
So,
what OPZ is
this is-
recommending.
Yeah, do you want
yeah,
to go
so
back
what
here?
Yes,
the
thank you.
OPZ is
Thank you, Mark.
recommending is
What,
that large piece right there is all industrial. And the reason I'm not a fan of that is because it actually captures a bunch of neighborhood folks as well. To the left along Hammond's Lane, and now that we have that new water tower going in there, the county took up about 4 or 5 acres, so, we're gonna have ability to upgrade, and I would like to see something there. So I agree,
I
but
mean, 160 acres of housing.
so There's also a lot of housing.
Yeah, I think there should be some W use
So,
there.
and that's why I think the mixed use. I,
That mixed use, mixed C doesn't allow for any W use.
Yeah, why can't we just do
And so if we did mixed use commercial, which would become mixed use suburban,
No, mixed-use commercial is becoming mixed-use general.
sorry, okay, mixed use general, sorry. If it becomes, or any way it goes about it, if it becomes some part of mixed use,
Mhm.
the current industrial part would not be conforming.
Potentially, yeah.
But if we did the new mixed
So-
use,
But the other
Suburban?
piece of guidance that I feel like I should give is that right now, this bill might get adopted exactly the way it's been amended. It might be amended further. It might be voted down. So let's say that the staff and the PAB make a recommendation that the owner doesn't like. When this bill goes to county council, the owner can apply. And at that point, let's say the bill has been adopted, they're gonna know exactly what got adopted, and they potentially can say, oh my gosh, the MXDS suburban is perfect for us, that's what I want. Or, like, with what we have recommended, I feel like it's gonna be very hard to try and create some scenario that anticipates a bill getting adopted.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I think we're going down a path that's potentially very difficult. And I'd say the applicant has the ability, when the bill is submitted, to apply. If there's a zoning district in the bill, assuming the bill gets adopted, if there's a district they like, they can apply for it and ask for it at council without all the guesswork of trying to line it up perfectly.
Thank you, Ms. Hall.
thank you.
I can't hear you.
We would like to point out that we're feeling, as a planning advisory board,
I can't hear.
that,
Say it again.
that as a planning advisory board, we're making decisions that are going to be irrelevant once the council passes all their bills.
I'm gonna
It's
say,
just
I'm gonna say it stronger than that. I think the planning advisory board is being put in a very, very difficult situation because of the new bills that are going before the county council that are superseding and making our efforts null and void. Because everything is being, I can't say everything is being changed, but based on bills that have already gone through. We've gone through 3 regions of improvements already, and it's all gonna change. And would our decisions have been different if those bills had been introduced and adopted before we did those region plans? They could have. And it's putting the planning advisory board in a very difficult situation.
So wouldn't it be an opportunity to still amend it later when we go through this all over again? I mean, because we don't know what we don't know. So it's like we're guessing at what might happen and we don't know that. We don't know anything for sure. So for what the,
It was a council.
yeah, I'm saying even after it goes to council. So after that happens, it will be whatever it's gonna be. Like, we don't know it either way. So based on the information that we have today, we just have to make the best decision, right? So I think we,
Does anybody want to make a recommendation, a motion?
Lawrence does.
Hey, before we go there, you know, I lived there for 10 years. I'm not sure who said what, but for some reason, I swear there was gonna be a park and there was gonna be a school.
It says that.
Oh, okay, something like that. And so like I have a lot of friends there and I just wouldn't like to see I mean, I know technically the way they banned me is because I'm on the other side of that street for speaking about it, but you can't just cut them off from everything. Like, once you cut that off, there's nothing in between them other than industrial or commercial. I would like to see at least them have some form of housing, because I know for a fact they're not gonna turn that into housing in the back. It's going to be like senior folks, signs are up. So,
Are you talking about me? I'm a senior.
You say the back, you talking about backing up against Humphrey Park? Backing up towards Humphrey Park?
Backing up to the PG&E line.
Oh, going up to the line.
And so they don't know that, like, that PG&E line cuts right through where they say they're trying to give the residential. So, I mean, you know, thanks for giving me lots of nothing, but you can't build within a few feet and easements of PG&E lines. They are trying to wedge things in there, which I understand, and that's their right as a property owner. But I just can't see putting that industrial complex right there in between my neighbors that are gonna come back to me and tell me what's going on every day, that are backed up to that and wondering why they have to wash their cars every day because of the dirt pile. So, and then I understand because it's coming to an end. It's physically coming to an end, so it has to have something, and I'd like to see something there. And I agree, you can't stuff a poop ton of houses in there, it'll look funny. So I would like to see something, I would like to submit.
Why,
Well, R10.
R5, R10, and W2 kind of encapsulates.
It's the location of the industrial design issue. The exact point of the location is right there along Harmans Lane, and we're already getting it widening the street on Harmans Lane for walk accessibility and bikeways. And you wouldn't want to put a trucking facility on a bike path. And then second of all, those neighbors along there are definitely about to feel the love because Adam Greenstein from the county has a large plan we're gonna be doing with road dampening and traffic calming along there because the school is right there on the other side of the highway. And so I don't wanna, you know, if you have a school right there that I'm slowing traffic down for, it's gonna make traffic slower. I would not want slow trucks dragging in front of these people's houses all day long for them to have, you know, complain about that. And on the other side, the industrial gives them a 24-hour ability to be open 24 hours. So there's certain things I do understand, there's certain things I'm gonna have to debate. And then as well, the other side of the street where the other access is, those are homes, all those people.
Right now, there's probably how many trucks would come in and out of that sand pit?
A sand pit, probably 30 a day, and you can line them up.
50 a day.
Yeah, 30, 50 a day, so it's coming to an end. It's not physics, you know, the whole field at some point in time. There's no question on that, and the hill that he's using to cover it with is 40 feet above the road. So all he's gonna do is push that over and let it sit, which is fine, that's fine. But it's like, if that's on the top of the hill and you flush the toilet, all of that stuff is going right there where they're trying to get some, you know, residential land. It's, you know, water flows downhill. So my thought is, if you are gonna put something down at the bottom, why not let it be the industrial, since it's also near the other industrial? Why would you wanna pin R5 right beside that industrial when you can just adjust it to over there? And since they're already cutting off some of that traffic from the big traffic, that is where a lot of those truck stops are, or they're really gonna start to get squeezed right there. From traffic calming and roadway and walking path accessible roads. We're cutting a lot of that off. So I wouldn't see why they wouldn't be able to put it there instead of trying to cram it right in between neighbors that are already upset about the traffic, because it's also only, you know, a few hundred feet away from the actual intersection to come off of the 695. And so imagine the traffic and the trucks lined up. A truck is, you know, 65 feet long, and you're already pushing past 7-Eleven.
Is there a 3D visual, map?
Mark, if you could share screen again also.
Oh, yep.
The
just,
Zoom
I
at the
just want to
bottom.
say,
Yeah.
if you look at the OPC, the SAC, the owner, I mean, it's all over the place. What they want to do here.
But yeah, and that's why I
Right?
said,
I'm
like,
trying to get that school.
I see what you're saying and I understand,
I'm not saying.
but,
And then
but I can't let you hurt me like that.
But what would you say would be the best case scenario?
My best case scenario,
I'm not really all out.
yeah,
No, no.
I'm gonna have to agree.
Yeah, I would agree,
like
I agree there too.
I like mixed use that gives them some commercial, gives them options. And if you encompass the property as a whole, you should be able to find your way and fit it in there.
But if you do mixed use, the existing industrial will be non-conforming.
As the industrial uses will,
Be non-compliant.
yeah, I guess they're on their own on that.
They will be
Well, there
non-compliant.
won't be any because they're going to discontinue the industrial use of landfill or
Oh, yeah, and plus,
saying
it's
mine.
yeah, it's coming to an end, so no matter what, the current use, stop it, no matter what.
We have to make a decision on this today, is that correct?
Yeah.
I'm asking, well, I don't know, I'm asking
Oh,
because
okay.
I mean, I would like to maybe see what would be the best mixed use, because I don't want to just see all housing, I agree, I would like to see other stuff there, you can't bring a neighborhood up by putting another neighborhood on top of it.
Because what I'm saying, this is all
Yeah.
academic right now, based
Yeah.
on the fact that the council can make.
Can we table this until we do our late revisions, our late?
When is the bill up for voting?
Well,
So
it can be amended.
We have new
Request.
applications.
But we won't know this before that, because they have amendments, and then they'll still be open, so the bill will not be passed before we have to decide.
But it give us time to get more educated.
I'm just saying.
Cause I believe I had spoken before, and like, they got beat up a little bit in other places as well, so they are trying to push a little bit of a hard issue. But I understand what they're trying to do, and I hate to say it, a good engineer can figure the way out. So I think if they really got through it, they could figure a way out to get their industrial uses and get the residential. I just think, right now, putting that where it is and giving them the full-on option of industrial at the only two actual locations where people can come in and out that are by residential neighbors, I think may not be the best idea. Down at the bottom where they do have access, there's other commercial and there's also a contracting company. I don't see any reason for that. And then up top, there's already on Harmans Lane, there's already a senior folks home. There's nothing wrong with those up there. That's fine. But you don't smack an industrial facility on top of a neighborhood, especially an older neighborhood that needs a little more help than pushing on. And we already have a new water tower coming in.
2 points. So the next hearing on the mixed use bill is on November 18th. And then December 2nd, you all meet again on December 4th. So council has potentially, or they do have 2 more meetings to get it adopted. So that's
Before we
one-
meet again.
Before you meet again.
we meet on this again.
Meeting
We're
on
still
this-
meeting.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
I'll see you next time.
So the other thought I had too was, if it's possible, maybe you don't necessarily make a recommendation on the zoning district, but you provide guidance for when, for your current county council,
I like that.
right? In case that crosswalk doesn't line up. So if you're saying you want to see a mix of industrial, light industrial, or make some recommendations based on the use chart, make some recommendations on the intensity, pulling from the bulk regs chart, that height, density type of thing. And your recommendation could be, if the new mixed use zoning doesn't get adopted, apply this, or if it does get adopted, apply that. Or some version of it, maybe.
I make a motion to,
I'd like to have one more clarification. At the 60,000 foot level, is this about, one recommendation like OPZ is a certain intensity? with the W2, R5, R10 versus a much more, we don't know exactly how much more because of the pending bill, but versus a much more intensive use, the mix. So you're in support, I mean, at a 60,000 square foot letter, you are in support of a more intense use for this stuff.
I do not want industrial uses right on top of the neighbors, but I understand the use over there. So the intensity, if done right, can be deflected.
What you're
And
saying
with
is
roads
another-
cut in, I definitely see the uses that they.
So it can all happen.
Yeah,
Just
he-
a
he doesn't
little
want this
massage
area
to
here.
make something happen.
So how do you word that?
Okay, I make a motion that CZ R1 BLP 000 4A, B, and C be tabled until December 4th.
Motion second,
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion, any nays? Motion carries. Okay, so we're not gonna do Brooklyn Park tonight, we'll do that December 4th.
Oh, we could, make a motion, the board could make a motion to adopt the rest of the changes, kind of, except for
Except for
the
that one.
ones that you specifically
Okay.
discussed, yeah.
All right,
Before we motion for Brooklyn Park, I would like to check a couple.
Okay, which ones?
Route 2, C3 to C4 issue.
That was the Blackjack Trucking, 6025 Ritchie Highway. Yeah,
We already voted on that one.
Okay, but
Right there.
what's that
Yeah.
for?
No.
Okay, where are we?
The
The
board
one,
voted on
the one which we went to see for.
Do you want me to read the comment, the note?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. he wanted to-
So for that, for six CZ R1 BLP 0006 6025 Ritchie Highway. The adopted zoning is R15 with C3 along Ritchie Highway. The adopted plan land use is commercial. The property owner requested C4 zoning on the entire site. OPZ recommends C4 zoning as requested by the applicant to allow the existing use to continue. The SAC recommends C3 zoning on the entire site to limit future uses to those more consistent with general commercial uses. Mr. Wildonger also pointed out that the SAC took 2 votes, the first of which they were fairly split on C4, and the second of which was that C3 recommendation. OPZ staff summarized some public comments on this application. The PAB discussed the existing use, which is allowed through the site's non-conforming use permit. And then Ms. Hartwick Davis motioned for CZ R1 BLP 006 to be recommended for C4 zoning as recommended by OPZ. The motion was seconded and approved by a vote of 6-0.
Okay. I disagree, but we're going.
Oh, sorry, that should have been approved by 5-0.
Yeah,
Thank
5
you.
0.
Okay.
What other one?
Um,
Do you have another one?
I think there was that one, and there was a couple of random ones, but I think I agree with the SAC on most of everything else. So as long as it was SAC, wanted to
I don't think they just.
so in this Brooklyn Park, I did call out,
I think there
all
was
the properties or areas where the FAC disagreed, or
Yeah.
we had a different opinion. So it would have been the industrial area that's up against the city of Baltimore line. The Bellevue site
Site, right?
and the one that we all just talked
The one we just talked.
6025 Ritchie. Yeah.
And then this one, the rest of the.
Yeah.
Okay. And then that's being tabled, and then on the. There's no interest.
Yeah, so the only reason is, did they tell you what the planned use of that C4 property? Where's the,
This one here.
what are they gonna do with it?
So it continue operations as, I guess they have some auto repair contractors yard, outdoor storage.
Yeah, cause, all of that is brand new houses and properties and residential homes. And, Google Maps.
That right there is all new?
all that building. And
Those
they're building up.
houses are-
Potomac,
Yeah, so they're definitely building up and, it's definitely going into residential homes and stuff. And they're about to put a truck stop junkyard right there behind the people's houses. And I was like, well, it's not something I agree with. And, I understand that he's been trying to do that, but that definitely strays away from the upgrade along the commercial side of that, especially if you're gonna add new homes. And all of that's gonna be new, like townhomes, that's gonna be like a pool, stuff like that. So like, you're gonna have that thing and then you got a big junkyard right there. And I was like, that's not something I really agree with, and that's why I thought the SAC was best, just to keep it from going beyond a certain point. Cause all it's gonna do is take the hit on the fee anyway. Therefore, I was not very okay with it, but,
It says it's existing.
so yeah, so right now it's existing and, it's a little shack, a little metal man sitting out the front of it. For
Today.
right now. So, that's why I was like, where did that come from? And why are you gonna put a huge junkyard truck stop thingamabob to use large equipment? It's what it is, that's its business. So that, I understand things to a point. But if you're looking to upgrade along Route 2, that may not be the upgrade you're looking for, especially when you cram $300,000 to $500,000 homes right next door.
With that said, Lawrence, also, if there's 1,000 or 1,500 homes, they might need C4 there to put a gas station.
I'm fighting that right now.
They might need.
So we have
More
a
than
gas station on the bottom side and on the top side, and on the left side and on the right side. I think you could travel 1,000 feet to get your gas up the street. It was my personal thought. I mean, cause, they're turning that Rite Aid that used to be there into a car wash.
Hmm.
So I'd prefer the restaurant, but I guess it is what it is. That's that person's property and that's what they said. So,
Well, there's also a deficit with supermarkets, right?
Yeah.
We have
they're-
that issue there.
right now, there's a Old Shopper / Giant / Aldi, change names, and right there, and I enjoyed having that because I can walk to that, and I can walk to all of that. And that's why, like, I understand certain things, but if I can walk to certain things and I know it's there, and I'm smacking homes around it, there are certain things I would like to see and certain things I would like to maybe stay away from. That was all.
So noted.
So noted.
All right, thank you.
Moving on.
And approval of the development policy area and development policy area overlay changes, planned land use changes, and comprehensive zoning for the Brooklyn Park community as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning, with exception of any that were specifically discussed during the meeting, as well as with omitting CZR1 BLP 0006.
No, cool.
A, B, C, and D. ABC.
Okay, motion's been made.
Did we get that correction?
I just
Yes,
have
it
a
does.
section of those discussed previously, and in the notes for BLP 0004, as Mr. Rodriguez mentioned, it's already motioned to be held until December 4th, so I think we should be.
Second.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. Okay, Mark. We are moving on to Ferndale.
That's right. Yep. So, let me back up the slide there. So again, no new zoning changes received for applications received during the public comment period. But we did receive additional comment on a property on Aviation Boulevard, near the ring road around, BWI.
That's where we were.
Okay, so this is on the east side, about halfway, 3/4 of the way north on Aviation, if you're headed towards the long-term lots. There are a couple, or this area here in dark purple rather than this here, is currently small business. That's our zoning district where you can sort of run a small business out of your house or house-like structure. And this individual, the property owner rather, on the corner of Ferndale and Aviation, submitted an application requesting C4. And the Office of Planning and Zoning initially recommended C4 in agreement with the Stakeholder Advisory Committee, not just for this property where an application was submitted, but for the additional small, for the other properties zoned small business adjacent to it and across the street from Ferndale. Upon receiving the public comment, we have updated our recommendation to C1. So bringing down that intensity on not only the application site, but also the adjacent properties that are also zoned small business. So again, the comments that we had heard were that most of the community, all the community is in opposition to the changes because it intensifies in that corner. This community had also bought a restaurant on the corner a few years ago and are concerned that a C4 would open up that site for that restaurant to come back, or again, further intensification of that site. And like I said, the sort of complementary properties across the street and to the south.
But did you say the restaurant needs to come back?
No, the concern that we had heard was that the community had fought off this proposed restaurant. And so
Specifically,
zoning it to C.
a gentleman spoke at our hearing named Ken Doan,
Mhm.
and he has mentioned that Dunkin' Donuts tried to get that property rezoned and they were turned down.
That's right,
There was a lot of community opposition.
that's right.
So just to clarify, your 0002 recommendation is C1.
And 0300, yeah,
Okay.
which are the adjacent properties here to the north and one to the south. So again, while the Office of Planning and Zoning initially recommended C4 in agreement with the Stakeholder Advisory Committee, again, now hearing from the community during the public, or during the Planning Advisory Board public comment period, we've revised our recommendation to C1, bringing down that intensity. And I do have the note that the applicant 0002, there is an active zoning violation for use that's not permitted. C1 zoning district would likely bring that violation into compliance. A C4 would do the same as well.
Okay. Does everybody go with C1?
I know that, but
Van?
Yes. Mhm.
Oh my God, make it motion.
Okay.
So Marie, for me, so we're talking,
Okay, Edward's gonna make a
I guess I'm
motion.
making a motion for zoning for CZR1FD FND 0002, CZR1FD FND, I don't know why I keep missing that N, 0300. We recommended for C1, am I correct?
Yes.
Zoning, and that the plan land use match accordingly.
Second.
Okay, and motion been made and second?
Wait,
Wait, I think there's a typo. Shouldn't it be 0003,
was it
not
0300? No,
It's a 300 number.
it's correct.
That's what that says.
Let's run it again. I motion for, okay, good.
Okay.
All right.
No, no,
We're good?
Right.
All right.
sorry,
Okay.
okay.
I'm not used to
Okay,
being
motion
right.
been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carried for C1.
Now,
And that is the last of the Ferndale.
Correct, thank you.
All right, so now am I gonna go here? So I motion to recommend the approval of the development policy area and development policy area overlay changes, plan land use changes, and comprehensive zoning changes for Ferndale? For Ferndale, as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during the meeting.
Second.
Motion been made in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion carries.
Moving on to the Hanover community, there were 3 new zoning applications that we received, but no areas that received a significant amount of public comment or needed clarification. And so move if we want to go back to, yep,
Okay.
your motion.
Hanover.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry,
Is there anything else?
I have a
somebody
question.
wants to-
Yep.
I don't know why, I have to start, so hold on for a second. We're talking about Hanover. Were there comments about the one on Dorsey Road? 0008? Did we get any?
The sort of oddly shaped property, you know, go Hanover 8 is what you had noted.
Yes, 0008.
Yep, so this one here, we did not receive any new comments during the planning advisory
Okay.
board.
Okay.
Public comment.
And that's also 6070. So there's 2 numbers in there, 6050 and 6070 Dorsey Road.
Those are the property addresses?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
There's 32 acres. You're dropping OS. And going to all W2. Instead of W1. You're going from OS, W1 to W2.
Real quick, it's 3.5.
If you want to see the site on,
Chopping it either way.
Would you say you're cutting that stream no matter what, right?
Yeah. Look at it. Well, I mean, I didn't draw this line.
so here on the north and
Oh, I
south
see,
side.
yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there any other discussions on Hanover? Anything in Hanover?
Nope.
I move to recommend approval of the development policy area and development policy area overlay changes, planned land use changes, and comprehensive zoning for Hanover as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during this meeting.
Second.
Okay, motion been made in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
Okay, the next community is Linthicum Heights. I'm gonna pause. Do we want to keep that?
We got Harmans first, right?
There weren't any zoning applications or no areas that received significant comment. Yeah, so yeah, I'm sorry, we need to take another vote on that one, just similar to Hanover.
For
Harmans.
Harmans?
Mhm.
Yep. So we. Okay, a motion to recommend approval of the development policy area and development policy area overlay changes, plan land use changes, and comprehensive zoning for Harmans community as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during this meeting. May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion been made in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Linthicum Heights.
Okay, so we've got 5 areas here to talk about and 2 applications here at the end of the slide deck. Should we keep going?
Wait,
It's got a
I
restroom
need an
break.
environmental break. Yeah.
Now, take 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You got your slide.
Bio break is better.
Bio break.
Yeah.
You good for me?
Okay, good evening. It's 6:50. We're gonna resume our deliberations of Region 1. Specifically, community of Linthicum Heights. Mark, the floor is yours.
So again, during the public comment period for the PAB draft, we received 2 zoning applications. Touch on those later. And in the meantime, we'll talk about 5 areas where there is, again, either where the SAC had a differing opinion rather than the Office Planning and Zoning, or where we received a lot of public comments. So the first area here is sort of in the northern part of the community along Nursery Road. G&M is here just to the west. So the adopted zoning is C3. The owner requested W2. And the Office of Planning and Zoning, we initially recommended C3. We've since updated our recommendation to W2, and that was what the SAC had also recommended for this site. I'm gonna bounce back to our mapping program so that you can then see that this site is mostly surrounded by W2 or W1 zoning right now. So again, the site is, what came in for an application were these 2 properties, and then again, that stakeholder advisory committee wanted to lump in these 2 other properties to the west, just so it didn't sort of create this donut. So essentially, we're looking at these 4 properties here. Again, W2, this is 695 right here. See the right of way. They butt 695, W2 is to the north, W1 is to the south, and you have a shopping center right here, and these properties back up to the back of that shopping center. So going back to our slide deck here, again, just one note is the act of violation, again, for a use that's not permitted, but W2 would bring them into conformance.
Okay. Any questions on that?
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, let's just bring it up, make it not
Okay.
forever.
Good point. Yep.
Yes, I like it.
It would be a permanent use
Yes.
within that district.
Okay. Someone is going to make a motion.
CZR1 LHS 0001 and CZR1 LHS 0201 be recommended for W2 zoning and that the planned land use map accordingly. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Motion's been made in second. All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Motion carries.
Can you go back for a second?
Sure.
201, we're going to W2, OBC changed.
Instead of C.
Got it. Okay, want to leave it updated.
Okay, then along the Andover Road area, this was an area that had received a lot of comment during the preliminary draft. Initially, there was a recommendation for some combination of R2 and R5 zoning. When the public saw that preliminary draft, they came out, let us know that they do prefer R1 for this entire area. That's that sort of light yellowish color. Within this light yellowish color, there was one application, -0009. They had requested R10, and the SAC had recommended R5 for that property. But otherwise, they had recommended R1. The other note to make here is this green outline, this has come in for a zoning application during the PAB public comment period. So you'll see the same slide at the end where I review what the new applications are. So
What's your request?
so their request is R2. So owner request again for -0009 was R10 and dash 0500 is R2. And again, because the FAC did not have the opportunity to comment on dash 0500, they did still recommend R1 for this entire area, except for the owner application, which they recommended R5. One note too here is the BWI mixed use district and right here. And so while this area is R1, they are afforded additional density and there is a development application in for townhomes and multifamily on this site.
But that doesn't have to be a zoning change.
No, I'm just bringing that to your
Okay.
attention because there is an
Okay.
application across the street.
Can you go back to please 0500, just since we're
So
here?
this one here, yeah,
What is the yellow
to the north.
to the north?
This is R2, and that is all existing. So we're not recommending any staff initiated changes. It would just be consistency changes. We're cleaning up some of those slivers.
Okay, so when this comes in, you're recommending 009 and 0500 all be R1.
Yeah, and spoiler alert is we would recommend this as R1 at the end of the slide deck.
Right, and that's 0500.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're doing R1 and R5?
Any
No,
comments?
R1.
Keep it all.
I'll keep it all one.
I would like to keep the whole 5.
We could keep it all at once.
They spoke.
Yeah,
Including the application, correct?
correct,
0009.
right.
Okay,
I motion CV R1 LHS 009, new application number CZ-R1 LHS 0500 for,
Yeah, so hold off on
We can't do
500
okay,
because there will be the public hearing on.
Okay.
So really right now, because there is no other changes, no area-wide changes, it is just for 0009.
oh, okay, so we'll keep it 0009 for R1 zoning and that the plan land use match accordingly.
Second,
the motion's been made to second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
The next site here is at the corner of Andover Road and Camp Mead Road. This sort of rectangular parcel is a parking lot for BWI Airport. And then Linthicum School is over here to the west. So right now it is a vacant site, and there is a sort of like a cell phone tower facility here on the site. So the adopted zoning is R5. During Plan 2040, the planned land use was adopted to be industrial. And so the recommended zoning from Office of Planning and Zoning would have been W1, but the property owner did submit an application also recommending W1. So that's why you see it as an owner application rather than a consistency change. It's because the owner has followed up on their land use change application from 3.5 years ago to now request W1 for the site. So we've heard from the community, the Linthicum community. They want to make sure that this piece of property, about 1 acre, stays R5. Have the opinion that it provides a view shed buffer, a noise buffer, and would be less intensive on the environment than a W1 zoning district, where the intended use would be a park to support BWI Airport.
we had a comment.
Is there a address that we can find that?
You could Google Linthicum Middle School.
Linthicum Middle School.
So as a W one, it would be a parking lot.
Well, that's the
That's the
intended use, right? But again, is when you do make these zoning changes, depending upon how truthful an applicant is of what they want to do, or whether a property can sell, and a new owner comes in and they have different ideas.
Yeah, I agree, because I was at the meeting at the middle school as well with that community. And they could definitely, I wasn't sure, was the BWI purchasing that to extend their parking lot, or was that just an owner,
This is a private property owner,
so it's private property?
right?
And
An
that's why,
LLC.
'cause I was like, how's BWI gonna extend their parking lot if they don't own it?
I mean, it could be, again, like a parking spot, right? That, a company that has their own private parking for BWI Airport, it wouldn't be owned or operated by the BWI.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was an airport property, because I was like, it's airport.
Yeah, it's an
property.
LLC.
Well, they said the intended use of the parking lot, but, you know,
Are they?
what is it now?
It's currently R5.
It's trees.
So-
It's wood.
Yeah, it's trees and one of
What it-
those like old fashioned
Oh.
antennas.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and so under R5 with 1 acre, maybe 3 to 5 units, maybe, what they could get out of it.
So they want to extend basically that and take it all the way down.
See, I would understand the use if it was owned by the airport to extend the property as a parking lot. That's probably what it was intended for.
So would you rather have houses or parking lot?
I'm sure they would rather have houses,
Not butted up against that parking lot.
But they're,
but that's the thing is it's also butted up against the back of the school too.
Right.
So I think the better use
We
is
town,
the parking lot.
go for R10.
Not to kick out those 3 to 5
I think
people.
it's like that.
No, I think it's better to give the parking lot, right.
Orders of school.
Oh, okay, well, make it R10.
And not to kick out the 10 people either.
Let's do R10.
If that's what they wanted, I would go with that just for that,
We don't need more,
but I thought that the parking lot was good.
we don't need more parking lots, we need more housing, go for R10.
Exactly, we need more
If
housing.
that's what y'all. go
It's
with
right there
that.
by the school, man, shut my
Yeah,
kid out the front
perfect.
door, say go to school,
Yeah.
Pause.
sorry.
How many acres is it?
That's
a little
One.
over.
Right. So let's just understand we're talking about 1 acre, right?
1.5.
Okay, so
And that's.
let's kill that R10 talk and let's,
It can get what, how many can you get in? 1 acre? How many acres?
1.3.
yeah, so you can get one house.
1.5.
There you go. All right, so now let's get back to what I think we really should do is.
R5 or
go,
W1?
make a motion.
Take a motion, we'll vote.
I am gonna make a motion, I just wanna make sure I'm gonna do it right, that we're gonna make it an R5 so it can be parking.
No.
No.
W1, right? I'm
It has to be
definitely,
the-
I'm definitely good with the owner
Parking.
owner recommendation, so, I'm reading 3, right?
Well, he wasn't, you weren't,
No, he wants parking.
he doesn't,
He changed his mind.
he changed his mind, okay.
Are we good?
And
that
how,
one.
I will back.
Are we
up,
good?
I think the best use, I know that's right, that the best use of the
Yeah.
property was the park.
Parking.
Cause it's also, like, there's right behind it, it's a pool, and then like, if you have to pull into your house, it's gonna be-
I'll take
Got it. I got it,
there's a light at that intersection,
I think it would.
like.
don't minimize, I'm about to read, I wanna make sure I get.
We got it.
No, I think we're good. Yeah, go back. I think we're good, because I'm gonna make a motion. We can vote on this real quick. Be done with it. I think I'm on the motion, for CZR1 LHS 0010. We recommended for W1 zoning and that the planned land use match accordingly. Anybody care to second that?
Second.
Second, okay, motion's been made in second for that property to be R1 zoning, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays?
Nay.
Yay.
Okay,
I was
3,
waiting.
4 ayes and 2 nays, motion carried.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
Next up is the
Where else?
Linthicum Light Rail Station. Want to emphasize that this is a planned land use recommendation. Okay, so, Office of Planning and Zoning and the Stakeholder Advisory Committee are recommending to keep the zoning as is. Maybe just clean up some of the edges, like I said, as consistency changes, but no significant, zoning changes are recommended. However, both the Stakeholder Advisory Committee and the Office of Planning and Zoning are recommending that a mixed-use plan land use be applied to this area to match the transit-oriented development policy area overlay that was adopted in Plan 2040. So again, this is a similar situation that we've discussed before, where we're not recommending, or I should say, right, because in certain situations it was SCC recommending mixed use, Office of Planning and Zoning wasn't, but you still had the mixed use plan land use to there in case there was a mixed use zoning district that was appropriate in the future. So that's what we're recommending here is a mixed use plan land use, keep the policy area the same, keep the zoning the same. The community is opposed to the mixed use plan land use. The concern is that it could allow development sort of in excess of what their vision is. And so we've talked to the community. Their vision is say 2 to 3 stories. And that is what I sort of reflected in the draft plan. Like I said, is where we have that section where we sort of flesh out what the community's vision is for some of these mixed use planned land use, mixed use areas are where there isn't a recommended mixed use zoning district. So that again, it can help inform future decision makers in the future. Okay. So what we've recommended is, based on public comment, keep the mixed use plan land use, but include in that description, that mixed use description in the plan, that before this area gets rezoned, that a planning study is done. That takes into account, like, we're doing this region plan that includes 6 or 7 communities, right? The guidance here is, let's take the time and work with the community on just this one area in the future before it gets rezoned.
I love taking time and community involvement.
Yeah.
That sounds
Like
like,
that.
yeah, sounds like a great plan.
Yeah, there were a lot of public comments about safety
There were a lot.
in that area. So it is obviously very concerning to numerous people. And so a sector plan may even should be done before, regardless of if there's any rezoning. Because there needs to be some improvements there for security and safety.
And that would involve MTA as well, bringing them to the table and talking about how we can all work together.
Like,
So again, the recommendation here is a planned land use for mixed use.
And then you have to study previous to any mixed use changes.
Yeah, and you can make that, state that in your motion.
Because,
If the zoning
Yeah.
is straight to the plan.
that you would do the little thing for
the
you.
sector plan.
That's right.
Yes.
Community sector.
I move that PLU R1 LHS 0301 be recommended for mixed use planned land use. And that we recommend a study be done before any zoning changes are made to consider the contextual surroundings and neighborhood community input.
Second.
Okay, motion been made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
Okay. This is, I'm gonna zoom out here because this area, you don't drive by it every day.
Is that a new one?
Done, yeah.
This is,
Don't have
They're
that.
consistency changes.
Consistency, okay.
Okay, we don't have.
There's one consistency change table floating around the table for this. Sorry, it was like 100 pages. I didn't think I was gonna carry it back and forth.
Give it to the chairman. You get paid the big bucks.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
You earned it.
So this is over on the western edge of the
What
county.
was that number?
Sorry.
LHS 1045 and 1044.
Alrighty.
So we received a letter, snail mail, from the property owners here where for those two consistency changes. And their desire is to stay R1 because it is currently a single family home, and that's their plan for it's these two. It has two addresses, two consistency numbers, but it is one property, one mailbox. So the Office of Planning and Zoning, we respect that and would recommend R1 for this property here. You may be thinking too, is well, there are also a couple other single family homes along this street that are currently zoned W1. So I've been out to the site and knocked on doors to verify, because we don't have these people emails or phone numbers, and checked with them to see if they did want to stay as W1 or if they wanted to, as single family homes, change to R1. We haven't heard back from these property owners indicating whether they want to stay W1 or R1. So the recommendation at this point is to leave everything as is, except for, again, the one property owner who reached out requesting R1. So I can go back to the slide deck here. Right, so this one consistency change is on the corner property that would stay W1. And it's this larger dotted area and then this sliver here that would go to R1.
I'm sorry, it says 1045, on the slide it says 1047,
So
but up top it says 1044.
Yes, I think it's picking up based on the scale. So when you zoom in, it's picking up
Okay,
that
okay.
number, right?
Okay, got it.
And then what I'm noticing here is we would also need to change
Yeah, that,
this
that,
and the rear of the property. So
Yeah.
just recognizing that now, if you want to include
And
that in
it
your.
has a footnote, it's 0.32 of an acre.
But you're gonna slide it to the left, you're not sliding it to the right.
So that's what I'm saying is,
Consistency would be to the left.
All of it.
so,
Far right sliver goes away and becomes W1.
let me you go back to the other map here. And so this
Yeah.
would change this.
Right.
LHS 1044,
Okay, R1,
OPZ recommended is now R1.
okay,
Likewise with that little sliver, right? Since we're currently recommending W1 based on the letter, we'll revert back to R1. And then, like I mentioned, that I forgot to include was that we need to also identify the rear of the property as well as the remainder of that property to go to R1.
so it does go to the right,
So,
not the left.
That's
Okay,
right.
okay,
Yeah.
all right. It looks like a lot more for this one. Okay. So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
No, he's got it.
I think
We did write it down.
we write it down.
That's done.
I think we're good.
We gotta just make a motion.
We did.
We did.
Yeah, we did.
Where you going? I can't do it.
Real quickly for our notes, who seconded that motion?
I did,
eh,
but I just roll with it.
What did you do? You good?
we good.
Need an official motion.
Okay, we're on the.
Oh, you did it.
Go for it.
Is that CZ R1 LHS 1045 and 1044 have the,
Can you add in there the rear of
Oh.
the property and the side?
Rear side, or two,
the rear and side is shown on the screen becomes R1 and the planned use matches accordingly.
Second.
The motion been made in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carried.
Okay. Yeah, this is an area I'm gonna
That's fine.
like to sort of start figuring here and then work our way in. Okay, so before we were up in this area, where we were talking about that C3 going to W2. Just down here in this office park, turning on the zoning, you can see that there is just a small sliver of W2 on this property. Our consistency changes to turn this entire, the recommendation for this entire property is C4. The property owner has reached out and actually wants to maintain a split zoning for the property. So
I make a recommendation that CZ R1 LHS 1316 go all C4 and the land use matches accordingly.
Second.
Motion been made in second, all in favor?
Aye.
this one's a two-parter. I got two slides for this because this is a larger area. And again, we start. So this is along Nursery Road, and the Nursery Road light rail station is here at the corner. And so there is a stream, Holly Creek, that runs, you can see it essentially along this green area that's currently zoned OF. And so we heard from many of the residents in this area that there's persistent flooding, concern about if this property, which is currently recommended based on consistency change, if that were to go to R5, that there would be a displacement of wildlife and concerns about that. So again, looking at our recommendation, Office of Planning and Zonings and the stakeholder advisory committees, these were, let's start down the middle here, mostly consistency changes. There was a owner application on this corner, on the western edge of that Holly Creek system, where they're mostly zoned OS and they're requesting R5. And then a sort of vacant property along Nursery Road, where they're asking for C1 to sort of match the existing character and zoning of that corner.
And is
What does-
OPC recommending that?
So this is, we're gonna break this one down a little bit based on a couple properties, the north of Nursery Road, the two owner applications, and then this middle stream system extending all the way south then to the North Linthicum rail station run. Okay. So I think y'all are familiar with our policy or our guidance from Plan 2040 about how to treat open space zoning that we'll apply the zoning district that's, if it's split zoned on the property or surrounding the property. And we have our development regulations in Article 17 that protect natural resources from development in those environmentally sensitive areas. We are also concerned that if you do zone a property open space, you do take away their development rights or economic viability of their property, and it could be considered a taking, which could open up the county to lawsuits. So taking that into consideration. So we got a bunch of arrows here. Starting up at the top right-hand corner north of the rail station, this property that I've now shaded as green, it was recommended as R5. We are recommending as open space. It is currently zoned open space. The commercial property here on the corner is currently zoned as you see it here. The parcel boundary sort of extends around like that. And while the Office Planning and Zoning initially recommended C1 for the entire property to avoid split zoning, we're recognizing that the original open space zoning was intentional to run along the western edge of the parking lot and include the northern forested area to the north along the Patapsco. So we are recommending that this one property here at the corner revert back to the current adopted C1 and open space zoning, recognizing that that split was intentional at the time. Okay. Then looking at this middle section here, this again, where the former open, or the current, I should say, current open space zoned area, with these consistency change numbers, that it stays split zoned, but rather than base it on the 1974 FEMA floodplain, fast forward and base the split zone, the open space, on the 2015 FEMA floodplain layer, which is the 100-year floodplain is blue, this orange is the 500. Let's base it on the 100. So we would still be split zoning this system all the way down, including these two commercial properties, which are in the list here. And the split zone would rather be based on the 2015 FEMA floodplain, 100-year floodplain. And the two owner applications recommend R5 for the one here on the corner, which is 0401, and C1 for is that 005. There's a lot here.
Okay, I have 3 questions. The bright red at the bottom, why is that bright red? And
This
is it
was-
currently commercial?
It's currently split zoned with that antiquated open space zoning district and C4. And so this red is illustrating a recommendation, a PAB draft recommendation of C4, but now based on public comment, we're recommending it follow the
Floodplain.
floodplain, which it still picks up some, again, as if you're basing your OS district on the blue, it would still pick up some of that blue, and the remainder of the site would be then C4.
And that would be conforming,
Conforming to,
the commercial that's already there.
let me go back to a zoning map here.
They wouldn't have to, because they're already established commercial.
Or I'm sorry, it's currently R5 on the western edge, but you still have some, see, just a sliver here, right? So the Plan 2040 plan land use So I gotta turn off the zoning.
What is, but my concern
It's
is,
commercial. So the consistency would be turning or recommending this site as C4. Or a commercial zone.
like, your OPZ is recommending a split zone to consider the floodplain as well as C4. And I don't know, I mean, that floodplain is like
Yeah, so I can pull that on here as well,
tiny.
if you want.
So that's your 2040 plan language, correct?
So,
Oh, no, that's more.
so,
You zoom
yeah,
in
so
like
down
that.
here in this corner.
Yeah. You zoom in like that. Is it already commercial or is it empty or what's there now?
Like flip off the layers. So currently a wooded lot.
Under the
Or you
tree
may
down
have,
there. Okay.
and again, the major system here. also. And it would be this area here, that would be recommended for C1, and this property here for R5. And again, you can see from this, that the actual, if I turn on the zoning, you'll see it's very intentional along the edge of the park. And then, like I said, this property here, which is currently zoned OS, recommend that stay OS. Yeah.
Go back to that C4 parcel again. The current zoning on that parcel is what?
It is a mix of, you do have a small sliver of C4, open space, and R5. It's just an oddly shaped parcel that wraps around.
But it's more open space.
And so you're suggesting today, those three split zones?
Does that parcel have a CZ number on their comprehensive zoning?
This one here at the south, yeah, that is,
What is that number, please?
Yeah, taking this one change, I believe it's LHS 1285 and LHS 1286.
Yep.
Well,
85 and 1286. LHS.
What is the road frontage to that red property?
looks like you have two frontages.
There's a little split. Great, why you gotta get them? So down there at the bottom. Sorry,
This,
yeah, that one. What number is that one?
these were 1085 and 1086. For 12, sorry. Yeah.
1285. So there's two numbers for that one piece.
That's right, because we're cleaning up the slivers and each, and when there was a consistency change for one zoning district, that received a change, and if there was another zoning district, that received a change. So,
So it looks like your, what is currently. Can you go back to the colors?
yep, I was just trying to answer Lawrence's question about the
sorry,
road
I'm
frontage
sorry.
of Charles and Boulevard Place here.
Okay, so you got that little T right there.
And there, and it looks like lakefront.
Okay,
Looks like there might be a paper road here that, for the meantime, terminates at somebody's garage.
yeah, that's how, cause I was like, I wasn't sure where it was buttoned up again, so it actually, it's only got the two entrances, exits, but everything else it's touching is either residential, open space, or what is that?
This is C4.
Okay, what is that, building? Pizza place?
Thank you. Okay, so go back to
Zone,
the color. map,
adopted
please.
zoning. This one,
Okay, so what essentially you're doing is giving all the current open space now becomes, if I'm reading this chart correctly, becomes C3.
yeah, so based on,
C3, if based,
The
I'm
chart
not
map
facing,
is-
oh, the chart says C3.
But is that right?
That may be an error. It would have intended to be C4 to match the adjacent. But again, now based on public, so that was pre-PAB draft. Now that we've received public comment from this community, we're recommending that we implement split zoning along the 2015 floodplain. So this blue would now become your green open space zoning district. And then the remaining to the west could be either R5 or C4.
I'd like R5.
why would we even think about
I
C4?
I'd make it all open space.
I mean, that would be perfect.
To buffer the residential from the C4,
I mean, because it's already mostly open space anyway.
and it's already
can't
open space.
disagree with that one, but,
And this is the 2015 FEMA. What year is this?
2024.
they love.
So-
Add 83
If they leave it as open space.
Yeah, but why, that does, yeah, it seems like more work when,
I think you clean up the C4 line, keep that one, and then,
Yeah, so we're taking C3 off, right?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they already took it off, so we
Yeah,
don't
they
have
already-
to rule
they already
on
took
that.
that off.
So we're only talking about 6 Charles Road, which is 1.27.
Yeah, according to the web viewer, yes.
The left one.
I think the entire property combined is 1.27.
Oh,
Okay, oh, it's just duplicated. Okay, it says 1.27, but it's really both. Okay,
Yes.
can you go back to that plan where you split where they propose of moving the open space? Right,
This one.
right, so that's where the new open space will go, right?
The blue.
The blue, so to the north,
Excluding the developed property.
all right, so northeast a little bit, that little green northeast sliver.
So the OS would shrink to then this outer line of the blue.
Right, but what happens to that part of that? Yeah, that right
Up here.
Yeah, that.
Yep, so most of these are either MDOT, or I'll say state-owned properties, MDOT or MAA
But
properties.
they're currently OS right now. correct?
Mostly, correct. Yeah,
So if you, under the new proposed, you're splitting it?
we would want to base the protection of natural resources zoning on a layer. Right, so ideally, right?
I got you.
So
I got
we
you.
don't want to use the green is based on 1970.
I got you.
This is the latest layer that we have for the 100-year flood.
So I'm in agreement with making all that open space. No?
I like that idea.
I like that idea.
What is all
However,
that?
I was gonna say, I think
However, who owns the R5?
These two properties here.
Further down,
Further down.
that, the one that we're
the-
talking
the
about.
funky two shapes,
That
the
one.
left,
Okay.
west
Who owns
of
that?
the OS.
That's privately owned by an individual.
Right. Wait,
So you're
click on it.
taking away the R5 part of that, making it all open space.
No,
for
it's
that
all-
individual.
Yeah.
So the
Doesn't
yellow
matter.
part are five.
So
That's
you
what
could, right, is excluding these two properties which are developed. If I'm hearing you, use the blue is now your open space zoning district. And zone the rest of it R5.
No,
Zone it all.
no,
open
so
space.
go to the clean up the C4 view,
Yeah,
please, and thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so it would be, is it 1285? If you
Yep.
clean up the C4 line, So I think it's cleaning up the C4 line and then not doing anything else to that parcel. Not changing the OS, not changing the R5, just clean up that C4.
Those two little
Oh,
parts.
So
he's
these,
got
so
that
these
little
two,
You got that little bit right there, though. See that?
So-
That's right.
so you'd be recommending OS for these two?
On here, remove the consistency change from 1286, so 1286 would remain R5 as shown on the screen right now. Remove the consistency change from 1285, so it would remain OS as shown on the screen right now. And then the area that is currently C4 that does not have a consistency change proposed would be the only change to remove the C4 and recommend. Is that what Ms. Hartwood?
That is
That's
what I'm saying.
that's what we're
Thank you,
saying.
Jesse.
Yep.
And recommend it be OS.
OS.
Right, and make it all the
Because
way.
that's what, that is
Floodplain,
within the
right.
floodplain.
Correct.
Was that a motion?
That's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Well, let's discuss it.
I'm sorry, I understand.
I do, but I'm compromising, because we're taking some C, I think this is I think this is a legitimate compromise. We are, I mean,
Some C4.
the C4 is in the floodplain anyway.
Correct.
So cleaning that up and calling it out as it is, which is, should be open space in the floodplain. And then we're just not gonna touch the sliver, so it would still be split between some R1, sorry, R5 and
And
OS.
OS. I think you might be right there, Jessica. It sounds like
So moved.
it's a
Make a
motion.
motion.
I-
Van, you okay with that?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Lawrence, yeah. Make a motion.
Oh, I need the numbers, Mark, so give me the
That
numbers.
property is
Well-
6886 Baltimore Annapolis.
Yeah.
What's, there's 1285 and 1286.
So I move that CV R1 LHS 1285. Sorry, stay OS as currently zoned. And that CV R1 LHS 1286. Make a consistency. No, so that's the existing R5, remain R5. Sorry. Mark, can you change back to the map so I can see the numbers as they, where they are?
Yeah.
It would be
So, yeah, thank you, that's what I want. So CV R1 LHS 1286 remains as is currently zoned at R5. CZ R1 LHS
S.
1285 remains as it is, which is OS. And then isn't there another one for the consistent?
And you would say, and the remainder of the property.
And the
change
remainder
from
of the-
C4 to OS.
And the remainder of the property also changes changes to OS according to the 2015 FEMA flood map.
Correct.
So,
I
Second,
second that.
yeah, you do still have this not just P4 and that's other.
No,
No. That's OS.
the rest of the property,
Yeah.
yeah, the rest of the property goes to
The OS
OS.
from C. Okay, motion's been made, is there a second?
Yes.
Second.
Eddie?
Okay, motion made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
Okay, did you wanna,
The rest of them.
We're done with that one, now let's go back to the other one.
so working your way up, or do you wanna start from the top down?
Start from the top, that's easy.
Yeah, so this one currently zoned OS, we initially, office planning and zoning initially recommended R5. But again, because it is OS, we're just recommending no change.
no change. We
No
don't have to
change.
vote on it.
Okay,
Done.
Okay, yep. Then there was the commercial property, we're again initially recommended C1, we're now updating our recommendation to no change.
No change.
No change.
okay.
Okay, then you have the property here on the west, which you can see
That
is
little,
mostly OS, you do have a little bit of R5. And we're recommending the entire property go R5.
Did you put the floodplain map on that?
Yeah.
Well, how could it be
How
R five?
Right. It's in the flood, right?
So you'll still be able to, build, right, as I understand it, with, if you meet certain building code.
No,
No.
And if we-
Recommend low rise.
We would have-
Show them the existing, this is where we have inequity.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So right now, they would just have potential to build on
Peace.
that small piece.
The area where there's floodplain and structure.
Yeah.
And over. That's like a.
So keep it as it is.
and that's roughly what? You know what that is?
Yeah, so that's like
What is it? Point,
0.12, 0.3, 0.02.
2 of an acre? Yep. Yeah, very good call. 0.04, 0.03.
Something like that.
They can put a shed.
I am not in favor of changing that to R5.
Not good.
So the recommendation is as is.
Leave it as it is.
As is.
Okay, down on the other end.
Then here on the corner, there's these 1, 2, 3, 4. That front on nursery, and the recommendation, office planning and zoning's recommendation is C1.
It shows the floodplain again.
It's all blue. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I was talking about, you wanna see the blue again? That's why I
Yeah,
was like,
I'm pretty sure it's all blue. And there you go.
Leave it.
Sorry, which site was that?
0005, I believe. Okay, and then, we have this middle section, which includes 2 parcels, sort of split diagonal.
And what's
What-
the recommendation?
So the recommendation is again to split, office planning and zoning's updated recommendation is to split zone based using the 2015 100-year floodplain layer. So their development potential would be sort of this area,
I'm good with that.
that stretch, and
And that's it, right?
Okay, great.
Well done. No change.
reading the room here.
We in agreement, everybody in agreement with
Sorry.
that?
Okay, so.
Yeah, to match the,
So that's
Floodplain.
1263 and 1325
Oh,
and
yeah.
11. And so 1159 is tied up here because it is, it's one undeveloped property here in this row that's, like I said, not developed or not owned by the state. So let me pull that up real quick so you can see.
What do you recommend it?
Which one?
That we would use the same sort of rule for these, for this middle system, for these 2 parcels and apply it for there. Let me call it out
Because only the one is not owned by.
this way, right? So everything, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are owned by the state. And then that one, I'm just gonna verify here. Yeah, is owned by, it's privately owned. Whereas then, starting here is where it's owned by the state.
Okay,
What are you proposing for that one, you said?
This one, follow the 2015. Yeah. So what did I say? So actually, they would be, it would be this property here, and they would stay R5.
They're currently R5.
Yeah.
With no open space.
Let me.
Some OS in there, right? Yeah, there's some OS in there.
So that would be something that would be cleaned up as a consistency change. Likewise, with the other properties, along here, like these 1, 2, 3, 4 that have OS in their backyard, but it is developed as a home. Same with 1, 2, 3, 4. Those would be cleaned up to R5. This would be cleaned up to R5 because it's developed. State land,
That's mostly OS right there.
this would be cleaned up to R5, but you know, if you were to follow this system, it is interesting that now all of a sudden you have this OS
Mhm.
that has a straight edge, right? So something funky happened there, you know, when this was zoned, but
Elizabeth, I love your face right now. I just want,
we've had this face all day, yeah. Yeah,
my God.
we've been upside down.
I feel you.
I think the state gets all of that.
That's on the
Yeah.
baby address.
Okay.
And so then the property to the north is R5. Is recommended to be R.
That's all right. The rest of the neighbors are all R5, they'll have to.
And for what's worth, it's the same property owner as the parcel or the vacant lot, it's one owner for the private.
Are we agreeing with that? R5?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I did hear use the 2015 floodplain for the two for 1263 and 1325.
Yep.
Okay.
Is that a consensus, would you like to see a motion?
We need a motion like we've been doing all.
So, yeah,
Include all of those changes that we
Marcus,
discussed.
just pull up the KVU document,
Yeah.
and if you could, the consistency changes on. Perfect. So starting at the north, what I heard you all agreeing to was that CZR1 LHS 1169, which was a consistency change, should be removed and the zoning should remain as is. For CZR1.
Wait,
Oh.
sorry, which
We
one?
don't see
Go,
1169.
Go back to 69 up top.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry.
All right.
Right here.
Okay, yes,
Okay, yeah.
all right.
So it's ordinary access, which I would assume underneath there is OS.
Correct.
CZR1 LHS 1184, once again, we're gonna remove that consistency change, the zoning should remain as is.
Correct.
CZR1 LHS 0401, remove that comprehensive zoning change, the zoning should remain as is.
Correct.
CZR1 LHS 0005, remove that comprehensive zoning change, the zoning should remain as is.
Correct.
CZR1 LHS 1263. And CZ,
Down,
Down.
down.
I think it's those two big
No,
ones.
Yeah, it's this entire
Yeah.
length there.
Oh, that whole,
There's the other one.
Yeah.
There's-
okay,
So I'll just do them at once. So CZR1 LHS 1263 and 1325 should be zoned R5 with OS along the 2015 FEMA floodplain lines.
Correct.
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 And then the last one is CZR1 LHS 1159 and 1109. They're the same property, it's just two lots. Should be zoned entirely R5.
Correct.
Correct.
Perfect,
Second,
yeah.
Okay, that motion's
Yeah.
been discussed and made and second.
Ms. Lawrence is asking about below the ones I just said. Those are the state-owned properties.
Oh, the state owned or the commercial?
Yeah, we voted
Y'all
on
voted.
Oh, we are voting on it, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, as the motion was made and all in favor? Any nays?
For the record, okay, Mr. Evans,
I made that.
and second.
Okay.
Okay,
There's a little sliver on that very bottom.
Mark, give us one more complicated.
What about that little sliver of R1 that's in the little triangle to the right, to the right, to the right?
oh, yeah, so this is gonna need to be picked up as a consistency change.
Okay.
So
That's
there
what I'm pointing out.
a bunch of
As OS to make-
little.
But OS, right?
OS.
Yes.
correct.
Yeah. All right, good.
Okay, so that is it for the Linthicum community.
Okay, great.
I move to recommend approval of the development policy area and development policy area overlay changes, planned land use changes, and comprehensive zoning for, who was it again? Linthicum Heights, as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during this meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carried.
Okay, we have one more community that did not receive any applications or any significant comment, and that's the BWI Airport. It is strictly the BWI Airport. So there are a few consistency changes there. There's this floodplain that runs right through the runways, which clearly is not there. So I think, again, just so that we're covering all our communities, if you want to make a motion
So BWI Airport,
for the BWI Airport community.
all right, community. All right, I motion to recommend approvals of the developmental policy areas and developmental policy area overlay changes, plan land use changes, and comprehensive zoning for the BWI Airport community as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning, with the exceptions of any that were specifically discussed during the meeting. I have a second.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and second for BWI Airport community, all in favor? Aye. Nays? Motion carries. Okay, Mark, are you?
So next up is just gonna be the new zoning request. Again, this is a situation where we'll just bring these to your attention. There is a table listed on our Region 1 website that identifies each one of these along with some additional information. But again, just for the sake of covering it here, in this meeting, getting it on the record, we'll go over those just very briefly. We don't need any motions because you're gonna be having a public hearing from tonight until December 2nd. And then an oral hearing, written period from now until December 2nd, and then an oral, public, session on December 4th, where you'll then deliberate. Okay. So the first one is in the Curtis Bay community. This is actually just north of the Brandon Shores Power Plant. It is owned by CSX and currently, mostly wooded, mostly wet. Again, there was an application submitted requesting MXDR. Again, recognizing that this could change or get crosswalked to whatever is in the new bill. And so preliminary, the Office of Planning and Zoning's preliminary recommendation is MXDR. Again, just to, based on the community's vision of bringing additional retail housing types to the area. It may not necessarily have the contamination issues like Brandon Shores. So this might be a more ripe site for some type of development like that in this area.
Did you just say it was mostly wooded and mostly wet?
Yes.
But that's to the northwest of Fort Smallwood Road.
Yeah.
That's a big parcel. Just mention how many acres that is.
That is, yeah, let me get that for a second.
Are all the new ones starting with 05?
That's right.
Mark, I believe it was 324 acres.
Okay. How much? 324. 300. Yeah. So if you can note this dotted area is a former, or sorry, it's the adopted open space zoning district that we're now recommending to go to W3 because again, based on the criteria from Plan 20. So, but just to give you an idea that, you know, while this line may not be exact, it may give you an indication of where the wet area is. Okay. So again, just touching on these, I don't know if y'all want a grander discussion on this.
So I have a question. If this is not stupid, now that I think about that, but CSX would have to sell the property in order for it to be developed.
Correct. We do have the linked application on the website in that chart. So you'll be able to read sort of who's making the application and some of the, what the process would be.
That's what I need to go
Okay. In the Hanover area at the corner of Arundel Mills Boulevard and Dorsey, currently wooded lot. The property owner owns most of these rectangular lots and is requesting C4 for that area with the, again, stated intention of doing a convenience store with gasoline or gas station.
Oh, sure.
And-
Sorry.
And based on the Office of Planning and Zoning is
Sorry.
recommend a preliminary recommendation. We recognize we haven't received any public input at this point, but you know, our evaluation at this point is C4.
Mm,
Okay,
yeah.
so this area here, also in Hanover, the BWI Mark Station, Amtrak Station is right here, and you do have this floodplain going through or splitting, you know, this area of Hanover from the airport. We initially, the Office of Planning and Zoning and Stakeholder Advisory Committee initially recommended mixed use for most of these properties. We have scaled that back based on input from property owners who either have a development application in process or have said that they do just have future plans and it is not mixed use. So again, respecting that desire, and this application, or this applicant rather, has requested that a couple of their properties be removed from this mixed use zoning district, as well as the plat, interestingly enough, notes that the zone, they've actually included zoning within the plat and where the zoning should go. So, again, we just want to reflect what's actually on the record already, and that's what you'll see in this application. There are certain situations in the county where typically when a project is subdivided and there's a floodplain parcel, it's deeded to the county. However, in certain situations, that floodplain parcel may not have been deeded to the county and it is still in private ownership. So this one and the next one you'll see are situations where that is occurring, where, you know, again, those floodplain parcels are not going to be your straight lines. They're going to be these sort of wonky looking properties. And so this property owner has requested that their privately owned floodplain parcel remain a mixed use of W1 and OS, rather than, again, based on our Plan 2040 criteria, we would have recommended full OS for that property.
Wait, that doesn't look right. Right now, it's W1. The owner requested W1.
So if you were to zoom in a little bit on this property, and again, we have provided the table, we've provided a link to the application. We don't have these mapped in our program yet, but you'll be able to use the chart and the online mapping tool that we have to be able to zoom in a little bit.
No, but what I'm saying is, it is inconsistent. Owner request is W1, but then at the bottom it says
Oh,
owner
I'm sorry.
request is W1OS.
I'm sorry, that is a typo. So that should be W1 slash OS. I apologize. Yep. Yep. And this one actually does include, it's this property and then a couple other non-contiguous ones that have the same tax account. So, likewise here, initially when we analyzed this in Plan 2040, it came up as a floodplain. So the consistency was to turn to OS, but again, after looking at it and hearing from the property owner, understanding that it is in private ownership, they have requested that it stay W1. Part of their reasoning here is, and you'll be able to review this in the application itself, is there may be some unintended consequences as far as setbacks and landscape buffers when properties are adjacent to an open space zoning district versus a W1 zoning district. So if they were to, say, alter their parking lots here or at another building, and they were adjacent to OS, there would be stricter setbacks or landscape buffers. But if they are adjacent to W1, then those may be relaxed a little. This was one that we had covered earlier along Andover Road. It's -0500. And again, request to rezone the property from R1 to R2 with an interest to just subdivide the property. And the last one here is along Pinnacle Drive in the North Linthicum area. And the Office of Planning and Zoning during Plan 2040 initially identified the planned land use here as industrial. Property owner has indicated that it's more of a commercial type of use. And so they have requested C4. We agree that it's more of a commercial use, and recommend changing the zoning to C4 as well as the planned land use would need to change to commercial. Okay, so that's a quick run through. Again, these new applications can be found in a table at aacounty.org/region1. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bullets down. It's the last hyperlink there on that at the top of the page, roughly.
It will be shared with the PAB probably tomorrow.
Okay, with that, I'd like to make a mention that we are now open public comment period for new zoning applications for Region 1. PAB will accept written testimony through 11:59 on December 2nd, 2024. Written testimony can be submitted through the arundelcounty.org Region 1 website. The PAB will hold a public hearing to hear verbal testimony on December 4th at 5 p.m.
And so here's the website. You can see, here is the table link, and I'm not sure when we have it scheduled to go, the sign up period, and then provide written testimony either later tonight or tomorrow. So you'll find links available shortly.
Okay, board members, is there anything else you'd like to discuss?
Can I get a motion on the region plan if you feel so moved?
Yes. Melanie's gonna make a motion.
We do that even though we've still got a few.
Yeah, so if you look on your agenda, notes number 5 as a draft.
I think it's 3 these days.
It's 3.
I combined some of them for you.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. I motion to recommend approval of the Region 1 plan recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning with the exception of any previously noted comments. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion's been made and second for Region 1, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Okay, with that, Jesse, Michael, Mark, anything else?
I was just gonna mention next steps, but I've sort of mentioned them throughout the presentation here in our discussion, so.
Okay,
Um,
next week, 5 o'clock?
Next week, 5 o'clock, we'll start with a public hearing for verbal testimony on Region 9. So far, no one has signed up to provide verbal testimony on those new applications you were briefed on last week. So far, we also have not received any written testimony on them. Following the verbal testimony will roll into the same presentation style for Region 3.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. A motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all